So Jerome Powell is, of course, the head of the Federal Reserve, also known as the Fed, and he made some comments the other day that are really raising eyebrows because of what their plan is moving forward to deal with the economy. So this is in Common Dreams from Jake Johnson. The headline here is, "This is nuts. Critics react as Fed chair justifies coming, quote, pain for working families. Fed Chair Powell is ready to throw workers under the bus to save the economy," said one expert. Quote, "But we are the economy." So let me give you some of the backstory here. Federal Reserve Chair Jerome Powell said in a closely watched speech Friday that the U.S. central bank is ready to inflict pain on households as it continues to fight inflation, remarks that drew widespread backlash from experts who warned the Fed appears to be poised to spark a devastating recession and mass layoffs. So this is their brilliant idea to tackle inflation. They argue, unironically, that it's basically necessary to massively spike unemployment and plunge us into a recession by continuing to drive up interest rates. Look, that might sound like a straw man, but it's absolutely not. They continue here. Addressing a symposium of financial elites gathered in Jackson Hole, Wyoming, Powell said that there will very likely be some softening of labor market conditions, euphemistic phrasing for higher unemployment, as the Fed aggressively jacks up interest rates, slowing demand across the economy by making borrowing more expensive. While higher interest rates, slower growth, and softer labor market conditions will bring down inflation, they will also bring some pain to households and businesses, Powell continued. He said it openly. He's openly talking about this. But the Fed chief argued that such pain would be worth it because a failure to restore price stability would mean far greater pain. So look, what's interesting here is the admission that's embedded in his commentary. The admission is capitalism relies upon some percentage of the population being an underclass that is left behind. Capitalism relies upon, the number that they keep floating is 6%, a 6% unemployment rate, where 6% are like perpetually screwed. But hey, that's just the nature of the system. And that's millions of people that you're saying, hey, it is what it is, man. You're going to have to get left behind. That is quite an admission. That really is. So here they have a tweet from the Hill. Federal Reserve Chair Powell, while higher interest rates, slower growth, and softer labor market conditions will bring down inflation, they will also bring some pain to households and businesses. These are the unfortunate costs of reducing inflation. Economist Robert Reich, the former U.S. Labor Secretary, responded bluntly to Powell's comments, quote, "This is nuts. True, inflation is near a 4-decade high." Reich, I never know how to pronounce his name properly, forgive me for that. Reich wrote in a blog post, but the Fed's aggressive effort to tame it through steep interest rate hikes, the fastest series of rate hikes since the early 1980s, is raising the risk of recession. If it raises rates again in September by another 3/4 of a point, which seems likely given Powell's remarks today, the risk becomes larger. The pain is already being felt across the land, Reich added. Most Americans aren't getting inflation-adjusted wage increases, which means they're becoming poorer. Powell's speech was seen by many observers as his most hawkish message yet, as the central bank attempts to rein in inflation with a blunt tool that is unlikely to mitigate the causes of price surges in the U.S. and globally, something the Fed chair has openly admitted to lawmakers. So, in other words, the way that they're going about trying to bring down inflation might not work because the cause of the inflation is not what one might think it is. It was brought about by the pandemic. It was brought about by the supply chain crisis and disruptions. And so to attack it through interest rates, you're going to inflict pain and might not even get the payoff of the lower inflation and the so-called price stability. The Fed's problem remains that constraining demand can't do anything about the primary drivers of inflation. So they say supply chain snarls, what I just explained. The war in Ukraine is another one, and corporate profiteering. There was another article in Common Dreams that I tweeted out over the weekend where they said corporate profits just reached a high for the past, I don't even know how many decades, what do they say, like 40 years or something like that? Corporate profits are at $2 trillion right now. So, in other words, this narrative around inflation, which there were, many products that genuinely were experiencing inflation. But what happened was a lot of the businesses realized, hey, there's like a panic right now around inflation, so they jacked up the prices of things that weren't impacted by inflation and are just basically price gouging and profiteering off of the media panic around inflation. And that's something Business Insider had an article about that. There were a number of different reputable outlets that came out and admitted that and made that point. And so it's kind of astonishing, right, when you look at it. Because now they're going to inflict even more pain as a result of the inflation that wasn't brought about by what they think it was brought about by. So anyway, so it's not just the big spending, in other words. It's not just the big spending. It's corporate profiteering. It's the supply chain crisis. It's also monopolies. Rakeem Maboud, Groundwork's chief economist... Oh, wait. I missed this part right here. The Fed's problem remains that constraining demand can't do anything about the primary drivers of inflation, supply chain snarls, the war in Ukraine, and corporate profiteering, tweeted Claire Guzdar of the Groundwork Collaborative. Our problem remains that the Fed apparently won't stop raising rates until millions more are unemployed. Rakeem Maboud, Groundwork's chief economist, echoed that message, noting that aggressive rate hikes can't address the root causes of inflation. Mass unemployment is not the path forward to a healthy and inclusive economy. See, all right, let me just pause. I want to, highlight that point there. For them to say, the goal is mass unemployment, what does that say about the nature of the way we constructed this society? What does that say about that? What does that say about the way the economy functions? It ain't pretty. It means that, human well-being is not the top concern or even one of the top concerns. Let's be clear. Aggressive rate hikes aim to bring down prices by increasing unemployment. Fed Chair Powell is ready to throw workers under the bus to save the economy, but we are the economy. So, look, we don't need to go on here. You guys get the gist of it. But this is ominous. This is ominous to say the least. What they are prioritizing is not in the interest of working class Americans. And yet again, that says a lot about the nature of the system. Ever since Adpocalypse, when YouTube defunded all independent news and politics overnight, we haven't trusted them. We know they can pull the rug out from underneath us at any time. If you enjoy this content, please consider tipping $1 or $2 per month on the Secular Talk Patreon. Link in the video description box below. Thanks for your support.